and awesome KUAM News Facebook Live audience. Keep the comments coming. We see them. There's a ton of comments. Mm-hmm. And that's why we ask you. I mean, just the comments alone. I mean, that's get your popcorn and your Tabasco. Okay, and share the show. If you guys want to, when the show's over, real time, you check out a lot of the comments that we had when we had Senator Sabina Perez on. But 8:10 now, and let's get Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio onto the show. Good morning, Lieutenant Governor.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chris. Good morning, Sabrina.
I guess just first of all, let's start at the beginning and go back to Thursday, that press conference in which the media was muted. And we're just going to dive right into it, LT, because we know that your time's very limited.
No, that's fine. I think it was wrong. I mean, I was a little startled, and if the communications team did not apologize, they should. I would apologize. I apologize, and I think that was a really bad mistake, and should not ever happen again. And I saw the letter on transparency that KOM signed, and I fully understand and support it.
So when you say the communications team, are we talking specifically about the communications director, Janela Carrera? Because we're just trying to figure out, whose call was that?
It should be well, first of all, since I'm, I'm part of the administration, I'll say publicly I will apologize, but I think that Carlo Branch and Janela, absolutely, they should apologize for it. And I guess I'll find out later today and make sure that they do.
Wow, so are we going to get a press conference and open? You guys are going to put Carlo out there and Janela and have them apologize? That'd be something else.
Well, I think they should definitely call you guys or talk to the media and do it. That's what I would expect them to do, and right. I would like to ask them to do.
At least person to person, right? If anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're all going to be living in this island for the next few years, and we shouldn't be so disruptive or to change the method that we communicate with each other.
Right.
Just because there's priorities in messaging you want, that's one thing. But we just have to. We're public officials, and we have to face the questions. And even if the answers and either we don't know them or they're not the best for us, we just have to do it.
Mm-hmm. Pretty basic common sense there, LT. Thanks for that. I guess you want to go right into this PacStar, because we do have some questions about this Lieutenant Governor. So I guess you just want to start at the beginning. My first question would be, is the way that this procurement, if you will, was handled, and it's weird because I feel like the procurement has been handled. I mean, we're using these facilities, but the Attorney General's office is saying that it's still ongoing. So does what the Governor's legal counsel and son-in-law, Hai Hun, does what he has done to procure these facilities, is it going to hold up when the feds start looking over everything with a magnifying glass?
Well, I think that right now, and part of it is I'm learning also the details, looking at the FOIA and the news side. I think that there is some concerns, obviously, and the AG and the Chief Procurement Officer have to come in, and the internal controls of the government have to come in and, I guess, be applied to the situation. I think there is an emergency. Obviously, people are coming in, but, there's still, as the emails point out, there's still a standard. And I think that that is going to be reviewed, I would think, and there has to be a standard enforced. Mm-hmm. Whether or not it meets the standard yet, I don't know. I wasn't involved in the procurement, but I would expect that, we have some good minds, and they need to always make the best advice and make the best decision on these kinds of procurements.
Right. But it's interesting that you say
it looks like there's a lot of issues that still remain, and I think that's what I could see from the quote from the AG's office. It's still active.
So who is handling the procurement? Because I know Senator Sabina Perez said that they didn't have procurement experts dealing with this. So who is handling the procurement on behalf of the government of Guam in response to COVID?
Well, I think that agencies, normally the clearinghouse should be at civil defense, and then they would work with the chief procurement officer. and move things forward. That's what it should be.
Okay, so we're
And
talking
there are
about
some-
Claudia Ekfaji and who at Civil
She should
Defense?
be. So what happens when you need resources? You have to fill out this ticket, and it goes into Civil Defense, and then they go and check the. They're supposed to go check the funds to be identified, and then get all the. Formulate the procurement through the GSA process. That's how it should be.
That's not how it was done, though, right?
I'm not. I don't know because I'm not. I need to learn more myself. I guess I don't have the answer to that question.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're not sure.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's interesting because in just following the paper trail, you said that it's supposed to go through GSA. And, you know, I mean, is this or is it not very similar to how we do emergency procurement after, let's say, a typhoon? Is the process supposed to be the same?
I think so. There should be that there's a standard. I think that what I've been reading is that there's certain fast track actions you can take under public health emergency, but if we have an expectation of getting it paid from federal funds, then we have to use the federal standard as the way to procure.
Mm-hmm. So what we've seen in the release of these emails from the governor's son-in-law and legal counsel is that he's kind of calling all the shots. And I don't know, is he the acting chief procurement officer, or does he have that authority as the legal counsel to the governor? Because the process you're describing and the way that it's supposed to be done sounds pretty different from what actually had happened. And I know you're just getting the info like a lot of us.
I am, and so you know, I mean, I can't give a comment on that I don't know.
But according to how the process works, it goes to the chief procurement officer.
The chief procurement officer always has the authority. And so, and her office has been supporting a lot of the activities already. This transaction, you know, I just need to learn more of the details and expect to hear how she reviews and makes her determinations as to what has transpired, and making sure that, you know, what there has to be accountability in everything, for sure. Her and the Attorney General's office would definitely play the role in this.
Okay. And, you know, we were reading through this letter from FEMA was in response to something that Charles Esteves had wrote, and Mr. Fenton was very clear in his response that in terms of reimbursing money that's spent, especially for PACSTAR and the quarantine facilities, these non-congregate shelters, that there has to be mechanisms in place. You have to be able to say who's been in the room, how many meals, etc. Do you know if these mechanisms are in place to track who's staying at these quarantine facilities, these isolation facilities, whatever facilities that the government of Guam that we are paying for?
I would expect that. Absolutely. They need to have a record, and there should be a record. I mean, don't forget that the people that are going into quarantine are being admitted there under public health directives, and public health has, you know, been keeping track of everybody in surveillance, under surveillance, in isolation, or in quarantine. So I think that it will be easy to match up those names because they're coming in on the airplane, staying the 14 days, and then, you know, submit that. You know, I would think that on a daily basis for sure.
Do you think a one-night stay for Tony Babalta is something that's reimbursable by FEMA because he wasn't feeling well?
No.
Can we just get you real quick on that, LT? What are your thoughts on this? It was just such a whirlwind of events that led to...
It is. Yeah. I think that, you know, that was a mistake. You know, he wasn't feeling well and he stayed. He probably shouldn't have, because that the facility was for quarantine. But, you know, I'll just say that his departure is a big loss, including for me. I mean, he's been there since day one. He was a key person that helped enable and execute the Treasury relationship to get the reparations paid. He has been very forward-thinking in our posture with the federal government, with the military, with the Department of Interior. I think that, you know, it wasn't good judgment on that issue. But on the whole, I would say that it's a big loss for our administration.
Right. Yeah.
Right, but do you think it's just this particular incident that said, I quit? Like,
isn't he the
is there
authorized
more to it?
signatory for the governor? So he can sign on behalf of the governor. So what I'm thinking was, I mean, he really resigned over a one night stay, or was it something else with maybe these things like this hotel procurement that he's helped organize with the governor's son-in-law? Is there anything there? And then I guess my next question would be, is if you're saying the procurement is supposed to go one way, which it's not rocket science. I mean, I'm pretty sure you've been involved with, post-typhoon emergency procurement. Right.
I did a lot.
Right. So, and when you're saying it's supposed to be one way, but we have a paper trail showing that the governor's son-in-law is acting with such unilateral authority to make these calls, and no one is saying, hey, wait a second, that's not how it goes. Is he going to be held accountable for this? Because it kind of seems like they got to go back to the beginning and now pull all these quotes and they're kind of like, are they trying to recreate a procurement record that doesn't exist? And if so, are we going to go ahead?
You cannot be recreating a record that doesn't exist. I think you can go back and assemble all the details, the supporting documents. On top of this, no matter what, all the financial transactions, COVID or not, are subject to audit and have to go through review, and there has to be a finding. I mean, there's things that I don't think that the decision is, or the opinion of what happened is going to occur immediately, because there has to, they have to go back and take a look and see what happened at the time that they made the decision, considering it's an emergency and you have a logistical issue with hundreds of people coming inbound at the time,
right,
especially from the Philippines. And so, the legal counsel, they have ethics. I'm sure he relied on that to make those decisions, and all of that will be reviewed by all of the third parties and the internal controls of the government that are part of the institution of the government, and devoid of the political side of it.
It kind of seems like if Tony Babauta is going to resign for a one-night stay, or and that's kind of what. I mean, I know it's personal reasons, but we can kind of put two and two together. I mean, if he's going to resign over that, then you would kind of expect that the governor's son-in-law legal counsel, I mean, obviously this whole procurement didn't follow the way, the process that it's supposed to. So I'm just thinking, is he going to resign next, or is there going to be any kind of repercussion for this, or are we just okay with it because...
I can't. I'm not sure how to answer that, Chris, right now.
I mean, do you have the authority to ask those questions, or is he just under the governor? Because I know the governor and lieutenant governor.
I think that all of this issue has, World Service has to surface, because that's the responsibility that we have, and then the folks that. Authorities that can come in to make those determinations will do it, and those will come in from GSA and the AG's office.
Right.
Because of the way this procurement or whatever this was for these hotels, these quarantine facilities / isolation facilities were handled, in your opinion and your experience, would this raise a red flag with FEMA in terms of reimbursement?
Sure. Yeah, of course. They have to... Any large transaction it's not necessarily a red flag, but everything will be scrutinized. Even the best procurements have to go through the scrutiny and make sure that they're in compliance, and only then will they get paid. So for sure, this one, I think definitely on all fronts, all the details of this procurement certainly will have to be reviewed, and there will be determinations made about the process, if there are any corrections to be made in future transactions, if there's an affirmation, given the circumstances, and those will all be made, and those will all be public for sure.
Mm-hmm.
LT,
go ahead.
Okay.
No, I was going to ask, what are your thoughts on Linda and Pinko DeNorsi publicly stating that her signature on these documents...
I got a statement.
Okay.
Okay, so I'd sent Linda a question early this morning, Linda, can you confirm your signature was used without your knowledge to sign the hotel quarantine procurement documents? She responds, Chris, I want to make it clear that I have nothing to do with quarantine properties and quarantine hotel negotiations. Yes, I recognize my signature, but it was an electronic signature, and I don't recognize this document because I've never seen it before. Linda DeNorsi. And so we had Senator Sabina on earlier in the show, and she straight up said that's fraud. So, I mean, you know, maybe that provides more context into what I'm saying about the governor's son-in-law and legal counsel, you know, leading the charge in this procurement. And look at all these problems that are coming. I mean, he's just using people's signature. I don't know. It's kind of sketchy.
We don't know if he's using her signature.
Well, I mean, somebody's using it. Her signature got there. She never saw it. And I understand that, you know, people's signatures are needed. And I also think, I mean, is he authorized to just stamp Linda's signature on things that she doesn't even know?
He's the one stamping the
well,
signature.
whoever's stamping it, somebody.
Well,
I'm just making sure.
Though
gotcha.
That digital, there should always be, and I believe that at least for us, there is a process if you're going to get a digital signature. But I've never, I discourage that. But sometimes they are necessary. And your question was, what do I think about Linda's comments? I would stand behind her comments. You know, she is the one that knows if. Is the only one that can give her approval on using her signature and her authority.
Right, yeah.
Were you aware, though, I mean, that people are using digital signatures?
I mean, do you think there's anything out there with your digital signature on it that you don't know about?
I can count on my one hand that the only thing that I've authorized digital signatures have been for proclamations that needed to be that I might have already signed, but they wanted to add more things, and I saw it, and I was out on the road, and then I authorized my digital signature. But
right.
Other than that, I never give. I'm not in the line for signatures for any of the financial stuff. And if and when I do, because I'm acting governor or such, then I would. I learned a long time ago that your signature is your most valuable thing, and be reserved with it. So I would want to sign it myself.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That way you can see what's going on, and make sure that everything is up to par and is, what you're understanding you're signing.
It kind of seems like that alone would be something that would force a resignation, that you used a public health director's signature without her knowing about it, and she never. I mean, I don't know. It just seems like that's probably way worse than spending the night at Pack Store because you got a tummy ache or whatever.
I just have to see what how the details are revealed.
Right.
For me at least to make a comment on that.
And again, I got to say that I appreciate you standing in. You knew that we were going to ask these questions, and to me, it's like going back to that press conference Thursday. How hard would it have been for anybody to answer these questions? And it would have been done.
Yeah.
It would have been done. It would have been done. That's why I just don't. I mean, it's so easy to answer questions.
Myself, just my luck. The one press conference that I went to is the one that had this issue.
You're like, what the hell? Oh my! And you could see the look on your face. It was like,
yeah, you could
mute.
All right, I have to go, but can we
wait.
at least a bit more on the positive note?
Yeah, but I think Bree has one more question, and then we'll
get.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know that the last time we were talking about this local CARES Act money, the $118 million, you said that there was some plans in the works to help some unemployed people. What?
So that's still the intent.
Mm-hmm.
Details are being worked on right now, and I would just telegraph that announcement is coming up. But
like at today's press conference?
Right.
I don't know that. I can't guarantee that.
Man, LT, I know I said one more, but just
if
and then we'll
guarantee things, and I'll say it. But if I can't,
right.
I can't.
We're getting so many comments about update on the stimulus checks. That was one of the questions.
Sure.
Can you just give us that and then do your positive thing? Okay, go for it.
So So I know that Revenue Tax and IRS have been working through the weekend, including yesterday, having a marathon phone call with IRS, inching towards getting this approved. So that the last time that they met was basically for about 3 or 4 hours yesterday morning. And Daphne's been out there with her team. So I feel that that's positive. Unemployment, on the unemployment side, we have a whole bunch of employees in the government that we assigned to Department of Labor to help stand up that program. They're going through the federally mandated training modules as we speak, so that they'll be able to go in and process applications. And the employer module for HireGuam.com, which is going to be the first step, in getting unemployment payments paid out to employers, has gone live. And I believe that some employers that already pre-registered on HireGuam will probably get queued to go in and start filling up the information so that they can be, some of them have already been validated as bona fide employers, and the next step now is receiving the list of the employees that have been furloughed or laid off into the system. So that has just gone active. And employers should visit HireGuam.com to go forward. There probably is, there's some intricacies once these get done, that, there are some employees that their payroll continues because their employer was approved the SBA program. And this process will help determine when that stops or who didn't get that, so that they can, the pipeline for the unemployment assistance would be made to them. But I'll just caution that this is a huge step, but this is just still the first major step in on the unemployment side. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing I wanted to say, which is not the bright spot I want to talk about, is that you can tell from the news reports that the plan for homeless
I was going to ask.
has to be modified and changed. There's some infrastructure problems. There's all sorts of issues that have arisen that are being looked at right now, and more to come.
Right. I know.
I would just say that's
Frank Mansell was saying that the tents that the government was wanting wasn't what Health and Human Services, I guess, requires in order to.
Right. There's all sorts of, there's the public health side, because they don't want, like I said, ever since the beginning, the pressure has been trying to make sure that they don't have a situation where clusters are being formed and COVID or other diseases might be spreading because people are congregate, versus the need to shelter people because they're just out there. This is still, I think that the details they're still pushing forward, and I'll find out more today what's going on with that. But I would just say that is that one is disappointment, and for sure we are behind on that. Mm-hmm. So I need to go, but I just wanted to say the bright spot for me was seeing everybody practicing their social distancing when Santa Maria and Cumberland went throughout the island. I think that was very positive for our people. And I just think I'm grateful for the Archbishop for doing that for everybody. In times of really desperation or in times of hurt, and despite your religious beliefs or non-beliefs, there's no question that that is a positive thing for our island and for our people.
Well, amen. At least we can end agreeing on something. I totally agree with that. That was awesome.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, LT.
Are you going to be at the press conference?
We'll see. I
don't know after this phone call.
But if you ask me something and I'm at the press conference, I'll answer.
Okay. Thank you, LT.
Thanks.
All right.
Okay,
take care.
There you go. 8:34. Well. Dang, I wonder if the governor's legal counsel needs a wrench while he's under that bus. There's an oil pan under there. You just a little thing, and then you.
Yeah. You could always count on Josh to come on and answer questions. It may not be the answers,
I mean, he said, hey, I don't know the answer to that question.
Just admit. Don't know.
What'd you make of that, though? I'm almost scared to ask you.
What do you mean?
I mean, just his comments. I'm a little surprised. I thought they were going to do more to protect the governor's son-in-law and legal counsel, but it kind of seems like people are just like, yeah, this is not how you do
Yeah.
emergency procurement. And I